right, good evening. I will call the Planning Commission meeting of Wednesday, June 24th to order at 6:30. Can I start with a roll call? Okay, you ready?
Commissioner Azar?
Here.
Commissioner Brazen?
Here.
Commissioner Showalter?
Here.
Chair Foster?
Here.
Commissioner Michelli?
Here.
Chairperson Mikulski?
Here.
Commissioner Manuel?
Here.
Commissioner Hale?
Here.
All right. So all here, we will move on to approval of the agenda. This evening, we have 2 items of new business, both for, one for conditional rezoning, another for a rezoning request, a discussion item for detention facilities and data centers. Any amendments or approval on the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
Motion by Showalter, second by Brazen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to approval of the minutes for consideration of the May 20th, 2026 Draft Planning Commission meeting minutes. Any edits or a motion for approval?
Motion to approve minutes.
Second.
Motion from Brazen, a second by Michelli. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, next we have a call to audience. So if there's anyone here that would like to speak on any items on the agenda, not on the agenda for this evening, again, we do have a conditional rezoning request from R2 to MXD2 at 241 Pearson Street, and another rezoning request at 146 Stratford from R1 to MXD2, and then a discussion later on detention facilities and data centers. Anything other than those topics, now would be the time to discuss. Seeing none, we will move to new business. So item 7A, in the matter of parcels 24253417600763 and 242536176060, commonly known as 241 Pearson Street, consideration of a conditional rezoning request from R2 residential to MXD2 corridor mixed use with conditions. I will start with a overview from our staff person, Melissa. Thank you.
Thank you. So the first request for new business, as you mentioned, is for a conditional rezoning request from the existing R2 residential zoning category to MXD2 corridor mixed use with conditions as voluntarily offered by the petitioner. The property is situated on the southwest corner of the intersection at Pearson Street and Woodward Avenue. And as you can see from the aerial image on your screen, it does comprise of 2 properties. The existing property directly at the intersection is a church that has sat vacant, and the property immediately to the west is currently developed as a surface parking lot. So the proposal will comprise improvements to both properties. For some general context, you can see on the left side of your screen the existing zoning pattern as established with the zoning changes in 2024. You can see that along both the west side and east side of Woodward Avenue, it's largely MXD2. That's the zoning category that the petitioner is requesting. The subject properties, as well as those immediately to the south, are currently zoned as R2, which is the higher density of the residential zones. And immediately to the west, to the north, and to the south of West Hazelhurst are some additional single-family R1 categories and some MXD1 zonings as well. You can also see the future land use plan. It's a bit blurry, so I apologize for that, but you can see the intended future land use designations as set forth in the master plan. It does call for the subject properties to remain as residential, but we do acknowledge that, again, the commercial district is planned along both west and east sides of the Woodward corridor. In addition, there's just some Google Street images for you to provide some additional context. The left image is the view of the church front along Woodward Avenue, so that's facing west. And then the the image on the right side of your screen is a view of the property, the surface parking lot facing southeast from Pearson Street. So as you would find in your package that was provided to you, the applicant is requesting, again, a conditional rezoning. So as part of this proposal, they have offered a set of conditions for you all to consider to make a recommendation to City Council for final determination or acceptance or denial of that request. You can see that, again, they are proposing to limit the use of the property to a half-story commercial building, to prohibit all other uses permitted within the MXD zoning district. The site plan would be presented to the Planning Commission at the time of application, and that would comprise the proposal of a restaurant, cafe, takeaway use within the current church structure, and we'll go over the phases within the concept plan on the next few slides. There is the anticipation of the City Council passing a resolution approving the requested rezoning, again referencing that Planning Commission need for site plan approval. The developer will keep the main church structure, transform it into a restaurant, cafe, takeaway use within 12 months from this agreement, if accepted, and that would be the first phase. The second phase, they would propose to remove the rectory to make more access and parking within 18 months of the acceptance of the agreement. In addition, they would then add 25 parking spots. Oh, I'm sorry, they would add 35 parking spots to the existing 25 within the second phase. All non-barrier-free parking spaces would be 9 feet wide and 18 feet deep to maintain consistency with the existing parking pattern. Another condition is that the developer agrees to restrict the use to the property to solely include a restaurant, cafe, takeaway, a small event space, a commercial kitchen and storage, and the overflow parking. So none of the additional uses that would otherwise be allowed within the MXD zoning category would be permitted to develop if the rezoning is approved or accepted by City Council. Lastly, if the project is not to come to fruition, the property is otherwise not developed within 2 years, then the property would revert back to the existing zoning category of R2. So you can see the image on the top is the existing site layout. The gray area is the building footprint that is going to remain. The hatched area is the existing rectory that they're planning to demolish. And the proposed site layout is on the bottom of the screen. So you can see, again, that the rectory is going to be replaced with some additional parking there. Within the interior of the building, again, I mentioned that there would be some phasing. The portion of the building that is going to front Woodward Avenue would be used as a cafe. The second phase would be the removal of the rectory and additional parking. And then the third phase would be to move forward with a small event space and the commissary kitchen. Oops. All right, and if you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I will pass it along to the applicant if you would like.
Thank you. We'll have the applicant come up for a short presentation before we open up a public hearing, right? And so just a reminder on our procedure for the conditional rezoning. We will discuss the matter this evening. If we make a motion, the Planning Commission is not the decision body for a conditional rezoning. It would go to City Council for final approval, so we'd be a recommending body. We will have a public hearing this evening, and then it will go to City Council. In the conditional rezoning, the conditions, as that were just outlined by staff, they are brought to us by the applicant, and we cannot suggest conditions for the conditional rezoning as the governing body. So with that, we'll have the applicant walk through their presentation. And Welcome.
Thanks for having us. My name is Anthony Sevi. My wife's with me, Lauren Ramaya. We own and operate 2 businesses at the moment in Ferndale, Detroit Cookie Company. We acquired the church in October of last year. It was a building that we just couldn't pass up on. It's absolutely beautiful. We have operated our business for almost a decade, open 7 days a week, retail food establishment. We absolutely love Ferndale. We love being here. It was always my wife's dream to do what we're doing. So when this opportunity came about, it was something we couldn't pass up on. It was a long process to purchase it from the Archdiocese, which vacated it multiple years ago. And everything that Melissa identified is our plan of action with it. So that's pretty much the gist of the project. I thank you all for being here. I thank Ross and Melissa, and that's pretty much it.
Thank you, appreciate it.
And what we hope for is to make it a better space and make it more community-oriented, and really beautify that area.
Great, thank you. All right, well, we might have more questions for you. So I will take the opportunity, if there's nothing else, to open up to the public. So we'll have the public come up and comment, and then we will open it up to the commission for questions and comment as well. Thank you.
We
Oh,
said-
yeah, so if
Okay,
you
okay,
want to go
sorry.
ahead, yeah, sorry, there might be some back and forth for you, but you'll get some steps in. Appreciate it. All right, if anyone would like to comment on the matter of 241 Pearson Street for the consideration of a conditional rezoning request from R2 residential to MXD2 corridor mixed use with conditions as presented, I will open the public hearing at 6:41. And seeing a mad rush to the podium. I will give everyone, sometimes people don't want to be the first, but we're friendly, I swear. And folks might be here for other agenda items, but give it another minute, just in case anyone's shy. Okay, that's enough time. Yes, we're all good? All right, so I will assume that you're all here for other reasons, and I will close the public hearing so that the commission can move on with further questions and comments. And so I'll close the public hearing at 6:41 and open it up to the commission. Who would like to start?
Yes, the one question I had about this was when Little Ghost opened, did Little Ghost enter a shared parking agreement with the church at that point?
I believe that they entered a shared parking agreement and a shared, like, dumpster agreement with the property to the north, not the Southern Church.
Okay.
And just for reference, typically, when we're asking somebody in that instance to have a shared parking agreement for purposes of providing parking for a lot, that is then deed, like codified within the deed or deed restricted, right? And so we would have that continued information with the property. Just a reminder of, we're all kind of shaking our heads, yes? Okay, all right, so, thank you. So any future owner, as we're going through the process, we see that information through the application, we should, so, thank you. That's a good question.
That's really all I had on the issue.
Okay.
Through the chair, I was curious on kind of the percentage of the footprint of the lot and the proposed increase of parking. I was just double checking some of our zone Ferndale and having a goal of, I think, 50% of the front and side yards being permeable for stormwater and other kind of landscape uses. So I'm looking at the diagram, and it's hard to tell if it meets that with the additional parking.
Yeah, I do. I will say that the proposal will still require site plan approval, and so if the conditions as set forth and volunteered by the applicant don't include that information, it's something that we would need to verify meets the standards of the ordinance at that time.
Through the chair, I have a question to staff. I am not that familiar with conditional rezoning. how enforceable is the use restriction?
So if you guys choose to move forward with a recommendation of approval to City Council, and City Council does accept the agreement as proposed as well as the concept plan, this would then get recorded with the county. It would become, part of that, record that's associated with the property, and it would be required to be complied with within that 2-year approval process. In my experience in other communities, I have seen these quite often, and we do have the enforceability to ensure that the applicant or the petitioner moves forward in accordance with that, the agreement and the conditions that they've offered.
Through the chair, conditional rezoning, can you confirm for me, it stays with the life of the ownership of the property, and if it's sold, it reverts back, is that correct?
So there's a provision that it runs with the land, not with the ownership. And that's actually part of this conditional rezoning agreement, and so I was just reading that condition as you were asking, and so I'm not positive if that is consistent with all conditional rezonings but this one does state that assignment and provisions run with the land. This all heirs, successors, assigns, and transferees.
I'm almost of the opinion, I don't know if this is relevant to this discussion, but I'm most of the opinion that if it's.
It stays with the life.
I wouldn't want to revert back to R2 on the Woodward corridor because the whole Woodward corridor is a very activated corridor, and having a R2 in the middle of a line of MXD2 doesn't really, and then so if it's ever sold or anything, it would really limit what could ever happen to that spot if it's already fit out for this application.
To the extent that the conditional rezoning conditions the proposed uses, it will still be restricted to what was read by Melissa per the conditions. So it is still a bit restricted in terms of it's not fully a rezoning towards MXD2. But to your point, I would agree that I would be comfortable with the rezoning as it is the Woodward corridor.
Yeah, so I guess the conditions really, the zoning part is not the issue, it's the conditions that the applicant offered is the part that stays, really is staying with that property for its duration.
Yes, and it could always then be rezoned additionally. Did I hear another?
Yeah, I'm sure it's in here, I just didn't take a minute to look it up, but on the flip side, if someone wanted to turn this back into a church, could it stay MXD2 and have that use? I'm sure it's in the chart, I just don't have it up. Or they could rezone it to whatever would suit a church at that time, if it ever wanted to go back in, decades, who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Looking at the MXD2 chart, it would be a special land use to become a religious institution again.
I just want to look at the flip side, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. So they would have to come back for a special land use,
Okay.
which probably in residential and MXD2, or, sorry? Okay. It might be for both.
In R1 it is, so I would be
Okay.
surprised if it wasn't.
No.
Through the chair, is there any context on why those parcels in particular weren't MXD2 like the rest of Woodward corridor?
Through this most recent zoning ordinance, I don't think we had amended the zoning, so this is from years past. So I think it's a bit more historical in terms of the church use.
I think they just assumed it would be a church.
Don't believe that was part of the changes as we rezoned most recently.
So through the chair, just another odd question. So what happens if only part of the project's completed? So for instance, if the commissary kitchen was completed, but the event space wasn't? is that considered in compliance, not in compliance?
No, I believe that they would have to ensure that all of the conditions as offered and all of the phases were completed in order to ensure that the full agreed conditions of the approval are met.
Well, that also brings up another point. It says if the project were not to come to fruition, does that mean if the project is not to be completed or development or construction has not been started within 2 years?
It's typically shovel and ground.
Through the chair, I think I have a question for the applicant, sort of to Laura's point, and I know we've talked about phasing as it related to like the dot. So is there financial numbers that you need to hit in order to hit these phases of, or is it just, this is how we're gonna approach construction?
Oh, sorry. This is where we're going to ask you to walk right back up there if you don't mind. Thank you.
So the objective is to get the retail space open to the public, make it kind of what we operate at our other bakeries, and it's not, we plan to do it all.
So from a funding standpoint, you're getting your funding, you're doing all the construction, you're just phasing construction. It's not, each phase isn't contingent on hitting a certain financial number or anything like that.
Correct, yeah.
Do you plan to have outdoor seating?
We would love to. We haven't really gotten into it yet, but we do plan to have some outdoors.
Okay. My only thought on that was just that I believe it's directly to the south is the senior housing
Correct.
facility. And so when I think of event space, I think of like potentially weddings, and late evening events, or potentially people sitting outside. And so I guess I just wondered if you've considered that in your plan.
We have. If there would be any seating, it would be on the Woodward corridor, so on the east side of the building. Yeah, in the front, because that's where the most green area is.
In the parking plan, it doesn't, there's no intersection with the senior parking lot, is there?
So there's a, in between phase 2 and 3, there is a public alley, and then there is a alley as well on the south side of the building.
Okay. I guess the question is, when your patrons are exiting that parking lot, they won't be going through the parking lot for the senior housing?
Correct.
Okay.
It would be either directly in the alley to Woodward
Yeah.
or onto Pearson.
Okay.
And to the point about the outdoor dining, there is a business license that they would need to receive to do a sidewalk cafe or outdoor dining. Any other questions?
Through the chair, and maybe it is a site planning thing, but as Commissioner Maxwell brought up, what sheet number is this? Hold on. Trying to, I'm looking at the site plan that has the final phase in it, and where I think the property lines are. Do you have, because it looks like your property line kind of bisects some of their drives, so is there an agreement about the use of the road off of Woodward, and does it put a burden on them if, they're held to their property line with any of their parking?
So I have communicated with the owners of the property. They haven't objected to anything. At the moment, they're currently parking on my property line. I believe it's a vacated alley.
A010, right. But that's where I see their drive and their parking butting up to the property line. So I just wondered if there was anything more formal discussion about like how they can continue to use their parking effectively, anticipating the drive is always going to be there on the south side of your property.
Yeah, I don't believe it has any effect on their property. They access it from the west alley and then also Woodward.
Mm-hmm.
But the traffic is pretty light there at the moment. And
Okay, it might be just helpful just for when we do see the site plan application, just to make sure that's really clearly laid out, so, because we will probably have a continued question about that.
Definitely noted.
And conversely, if your patrons were to go through and leave towards Woodward, they'd be off your property onto their drive, and then if it falls out of disrepair, or if they take it out because they're only using the other side, these kind of things could impact your flow. So, yeah, it's good to have that locked in, the
Got it.
understanding.
I think we prefer, like, instead of, sometimes you'll see those situations where then you block it off, and we'd much rather see an agreement between the two parties that just make it easier for flow.
Noted.
Through the chair, just another matter for consideration, but, this is a historical property with a set footprint. I think on these types of districts, frontage on a main road and access and so on is what's preferred. It looks like we're not, there'd be no way or no reason to ask to only have access off of Woodward on your, given what property you have. But, and given that there's a public alley in the back, so that could be considered as circulation, so that's a bonus. But I just want the thought out there about when we're directing or accepting property onto a side street instead of the main street, because that comes up a lot along Woodward, where don't funnel it into the neighborhoods. You're causing us, even problem getting to Woodward because, so much, those are extreme cases, but that's the discussion that comes up if all the access is purely not on the main frontage, so.
I think that's probably more of a discussion for us, but again, that's why we're very concerned about, like, traffic circulation, which again, once we see the plans, just make sure that's all kind
Yeah,
of
and I noted everything you identified, and
Perfect.
our current building on Woodward, everything's in one way and out another way. It's down an alley. We put arrows on the ground, which you can't tell people to go left or right, but that's the best attempt. So I've noted everything you've identified.
Thank you.
Through the chair, just another question about, I guess maybe the business. What kind of events are you envisioning?
Wedding showers, private events, nothing more than 50 people. It's more for small gatherings.
So nothing incredibly noisy.
Correct.
Have you given any thought about noise buffering with the neighboring property?
So it is a brick building. It's very quiet. I haven't, but it's something that I'll look into if requested.
There's no further questions for the applicant. Again, we are the recommending body to the city council for final approval for the conditional rezoning.
I'd like to make a motion in the matter of Sidwell numbers 24-25-34, -176-063, and 060. As a public hearing was held as published for this date and place. The Planning Commission recommends approval of the conditional rezoning application and agreement to the City Council to conditionally rezone the parcels from R2 residential to MXD2 corridor mixed use with the findings and conditions as outlined in the packet. The findings and conditions 1 through 8 as outlined in the packet.
Second.
As a motion by Showalter, a second by Michelli. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll have a roll call vote.
Commissioner Azar,
Yes.
Commissioner Brazen,
Yes.
Commissioner Showalter,
Yes.
Chair Foster,
Yes?
Commissioner Michele,
Yes.
Councilmember Mikulski,
Yes.
Commissioner Manuel,
Yes.
Commissioner Hale.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks for your consideration and time.
And through the chair, can I ask staff to prepare a memo to council about the transfer of the conditions, and that the provision runs along with the land ownership, not the individuals that own it, so that we have clarity on that? Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda, we have a rezoning. So in the matter of parcel 24-25-33-481, 482 rather, -022, commonly known as 146 Stratford Road, consideration of a rezoning request from R1 residential to MXD2 corridor mixed use. We'll start with a presentation by Melissa.
Thank you. So the subject property is 146 Stratford Road. As you mentioned, the consideration is for a rezoning, a standard rezoning from R1 residential to MXD2, excuse me, corridor mixed use with, apologies, with no conditions. That is a typo. So the property is located within the southwest portion of the city, on the east side of Stratford, north of 8 Mile Road. You can see the existing zoning pattern. Again, the subject site is zoned as residential. All of those properties to the north are also R1. Those to the south, the west, and the east are the same as the requested zoning category, MXD2, and those to the northeast are MXD1. I would like to note that the petitioner does also own both properties immediately south, and so the intent with this request is to move forward and hopefully get approval for the rezoning so that they can combine the subject property with those to the south and develop as a single commercial site. You can see within the future land use designation, again, it's poor quality, but the future land use map did call for this property to remain as traditional residential, but those to the west, the south, and the east were planned for commercial uses, and those to the northeast were planned for mixed use uses. Here is a Google Earth image. You can see this is 146 Stratford. It's existing residential in character. It's currently used as a rental property. To the south is a vacant structure that exists. There is an alley that would need to be vacated, and then there's another MXD2 property immediately fronting 8 Mile Road. So really, again, they're intending to rezone this property as identified in the red outline and then combine and develop this entire corner. So staff would like to note that because this is a standard rezoning request, if recommended for approval and ultimately approved by City Council, any of those uses identified within the schedule of permitted uses, both special land uses and permitted by right uses, would be allowed to develop. So it's a large variety, and again, this is the MXD2 zoning district, so there are many uses varying in like residential style, commercial style office. So that's something definitely that we would like you all to consider. It is possible, again, that the petitioner could move forward with the intended commercial use, or they could move forward with a different use as specified within the ordinance. Again, they intend on combining the property, developing that entire corner. And we have provided a more in-depth review of the proposal within your staff report in your package. So if you have any further questions for staff or the applicant, please let us know.
Thank you. I do have a question that well, I think it's best to maybe just ask now before we move on to the applicant and the public hearing. Because it looks like the site doesn't actually meet the requirement of the mixed MXD2 with the 100-foot frontage.
Correct. Yes, these are all existing nonconformities in terms of, I believe, lot width. So in order to really get a MXD2 property that does meet those minimum dimensional requirements as set forth in the ordinance, you'd have to combine all of these properties.
Right, and that is the intention. So I believe we would require them to combine the lots prior to?
Correct.
Yes, but they are not currently.
They are not.
So it would be the condition of, I'm just making sure I have all the ducks in a row. So it's a condition of the rezoning that they would combine.
Correct.
Okay, just want to make sure I had that straight. Thank you. All right, well, with that, we can open it up to the applicant and then move to a public hearing. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
My name is Mark Lewis. If you guys have any questions. I don't have anything in
Okay.
particular, yes.
All right.
For the site, I just like to combine them. Maybe in the future, we can make the corner better.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that. All right, we might ask you back up for questions, but we can open it up to the public for questions now if you don't have anything further. I appreciate it, thanks, Mark. All right, and with that, if you want to go sit down and we can open up the microphone, I will open the public hearing for the matter of parcel 24-25-33-482-022. Do I have to read all this? Commonly known as 146 Stratford Road, for the consideration of a rezoning request from R1 residential to MXD2 corridor mixed use. I will open the public hearing at 7:06. So if there's anyone here who would like to speak on the matter of 146 Stratford for the rezoning, now is the time. Everyone must be here for the good stuff later, huh? All right. Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing at 7:06. All right, Commission. Again, this is a rezoning. It is not a conditional rezoning, so the applicant did not present us with conditions for the rezoning. It is an open rezoning from R1 to MXD2. Again, though, we are the recommending body to City Council where it will go for final determination.
So looking at the, will there be any issue with vacating the alleyway? If they, because do any of the other uses, do any of the other spaces around there require the use of the alleyway that would make it so it wouldn't be able to be one full swath of land?
Staff has reached out to Oakland County, and we cannot identify who actually owns that alley, whether it's city or county or whoever else. So,
that sounds like a big problem, though.
right? Yeah. Yep. So, yeah, that's really all dependent on ultimately the eastern portion of the alley was vacated at one point in time. And again, Oakland County couldn't determine how that process, how the vacation process happened then. So it can be vacated. It's just a matter of what process we take in order to vacate it. Did that answer your question?
Kind of. I want to make if, let's say we decide to move forward with one of my big issues with combining it all into one property is I would not want to push anyone, when it came to site plan approval, I wouldn't want anything to ever dump onto Stratford Road, because that's, and if there's an alleyway in the middle and it's MXD2, then you're kind of stuck throwing people on Stratford.
Well, I think to the point about combination in terms of having the frontage, and to the point of what you've just said in terms of access, should be along 8 Mile versus Stratford. Commissioners made this point on our earlier item as well. I think that we could condition approval on those terms to make sure that the frontage orients to 8 Mile. The lots are combined and there's frontage on 8 Mile, and that access is oriented that way. And that's what our zoning ordinance already requires, I believe, so. So I'm not sure. I think it might just be on making sure that they can meet the requirements of accessibility. And that, I'm not sure if we would want to condition it on access, like, so if we don't know who owns it, means that it's not a public alleyway, so it's already, what's the word? Decommissioned or whatnot.
Possibly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Through the chair, do we know if there's any utilities running through there that would make it harder to develop right across the property?
I don't believe so. But we haven't seen a survey, but again, I'd imagine if the alley was vacant on the eastern portion, I'd imagine there's probably not any utilities running through on just that western portion of.
Chair, I agree with Commissioner Showalter that corridor districts are, MXD2 are like faced toward what we consider like a corridor district, and that would be 8 Mile. And I think we've had other previous years back instances where we've made a point to try and lock that in so that we're not turning it towards a residential street. So I believe the conditions that you've noted would make that more successful, that combining 2 lots that face Stratford as 100 doesn't really meet the intent, but then doing, vacating and combining the parcels so that it's got the 8 Mile frontage would be, solve that.
Through the chair. So this is currently all just perspective. There's no concrete development proposal plan or anything. The thought being, with a larger parcel, you can shop somebody to develop it. Absolutely. How often does the city do this, is my question.
Not very frequently.
For staff? At first read, it seems reasonable, but I'm just curious how often this is done.
So you guys know, Ross and I are both fairly new to the city. Within my time here, I haven't seen any straight rezonings. I don't think it's atypical, especially in terms of the existing nonconformities and this being a busy intersection right off of Woodward. I think somebody who intends on developing this area would need to combine them in order to create something, a viable piece of property. With that being said, it's definitely, something for you to consider, because any of those uses that are allowed could develop. And so that's really something that needs to be weighed in I guess, comparison to that character and that portion within the city. But it is something that you would see at the time of site plan to ensure that whatever is proposed following an approval of a rezoning here would still need to meet those dimensional standards and those additional conditions as set forth within the ordinance. So the intent of the ordinance would still need to be met to ensure that the development is at least viable and successful and healthy, to ensure that that area doesn't suffer.
May I ask what your history in developing parcels like this is?
For me,
Yeah.
I've done residentials basically, but commercial, I have a lot of connections and friends and all that, yes. I've been in the gas business for 30 years. I
Gas.
own the gas station next to it,
Oh, is that what's to the south?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been there for past 30 years.
What's just to the east of the gas station?
Oh, the gas station is to the east, and it's
Gas
the
station
fish.
is to the east, and
The-
this,
The
yeah.
fish fry.
So
Fish
we
fry
go,
is
yes,
directly
yeah, so we go from Livernois to Stratford.
Kentucky Fried Chicken across the street.
That's, yes.
Okay, residential.
Yes.
Thank you.
Through the chair to the applicant, that property today is a rental property? Is it occupied as a rental property?
Right now, no. No, I had squatters in there for 6 months, but no, right now.
Thank you.
For staff, I guess I have a question. So if I'm reading it right, I mean, there's plenty of options that a developer could go with as they move forward with MXD2. But, okay, I look at the findings, and I think that's all reasonable, right? I look at the MXD2, I get it. Does not further the goals of the master plan, incompatible with the intent of zoning district. I mean, it's just like a list of all the dings to it. But like, is the upside that there might be residential housing there at one point? I mean, is that kind of like the caveat here is there's all these things that might happen, but.
So I think it's a good question, and thank you. I think that really we have to consider, and of course, we thank staff for putting together these packets and providing the recommendations.
Thank you.
But I think that in terms of, we really need to, you don't necessarily have to review it from that lens, but more so, we have to make our own determination in terms of whether or not we think that this does further the goals and objectives of the master plan, and if this is a good use for this specific site in terms of all the findings. These are per the zoning ordinance and the requirements of a rezoning, et cetera. So just like, I would encourage us all, you feel free to take a step back and make your own determination. But we do have to provide findings and potentially conditions for the rezoning. So I think there are two different examples. So one is the example approval motion, and the other is an example denial motion. So depending on which one you read, you're getting a different kind of lens.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So for me, I think that as you can look from the satellite view, which is so wonderful with technology these days, you can really see that, to the west, the KFC goes up actually even almost one additional plot to the north. So it's kind of consistent with, and I think to the east as well. You can kind of see that the depth of these lots along 8 Mile are kind of consistent with the addition of, that's actually even easier to see, yes, thank you.
Flip to the color one, Melissa.
Would you mind if you, flip to the, actually the ArcGIS map of the zoning area?
The purple and the yellow.
Yeah, so we can see the purple and the yellow.
one?
Do you have one that's a little bit further zoomed out so we can look at the
I
The
can
context
the
of 8 Mile?
actual zoning.
You want to pass this around?
here's the context of 8 Mile, how deep most of those properties are along 8 Mile was where the purple is.
I think part of this is that this has obviously been done in the past, where these parcels have combined for usability of those lots, potentially. And that to get a working site in order for redevelopment, oftentimes you do need more space, particularly when you're looking at, these sites along 8 Mile. And as it is adjacent, and to make sure that we have the requirements that would make an overall site that's workable along 8 Mile with the traffic flow, et cetera, that we've already discussed, with the conditions potentially of, requiring, obviously, the combination of the lots, but potentially of ensuring that the alley gets resolved and we can figure that out. And also, I think that potentially, if the alley doesn't get resolved, I doubt that we can combine the lots and make this work anyway. So I think, I'm not sure if we even need additional language in the conditions of the rezoning, but, oh my goodness, this really
Well,
needs.
So what are we rezoning? The entire plot of 3 lands, or just that yellow highlighted box?
Just the single highlighted box to basically remove like a split zoned property in the event that it's to be combined.
Okay, so what we would be, let's say that we vote today to approve the zoning, then that means that,
Rezoning, yeah.
rezoning, then that means that that highlighted blue box on the, that blue box becomes purple. And even, so if the alleyway is not resolved, then it still is an MXD2 land. It still is,
Through the chair, I thought one of the conditions is that it must be combined.
It must be combined.
as long
in.
as that's one, okay.
Is
that's
one of the conditions, yes.
Yeah, and I would say that, so potentially we would want to put in language about the alley specifically, because I don't know if it's necessary or not, so we can always just pad it and add it, just in case it is necessary. But I think that, so right now, none of these parcels are combined, is that?
Correct.
Yeah, I don't know if you would even be able, I think if we were talking about combining all the parcels, you would need to have ownership over the alleyway, and so that would be a requirement.
If we were to combine the parcels, yeah, I would imagine so.
Yeah, I can pull up a map that shows like the dimensions or estimated dimensions if you would like me to provide that for you.
Yeah, well, we might just want, so the proposed condition that says that the parcel must be formally combined with the properties to the south to create a single MXD2 zone property. We might just want to be more specific about those specific parcels that we're requiring them to be combined with. And I think that combination would require ownership over that lot, the alleyway. And hopefully, that sounds like a nightmare. Like, hopefully this actually gets resolved quite easily, hopefully, because I would hate for this to be, pushed along too long to find ownership over that.
So it looks like below, when I'm looking at, it looks like there's 2 parcels, two purple parcels along.
Mm-hmm.
Are both of the two parcels facing 8 Mile, are those both owned by you? Okay, so you own those 2 as well as the,
There's 3 then.
okay, so you own all 4 parcels then? Okay.
That little box is a parking lot.
Okay.
What is 138 Stratford today?
Right now, it's commercial, where we have a couple of clients are looking into renting.
And when was that acquired?
Last week. I have it listed with Justin.
I'm sorry, can you
Oh, sorry.
come to use the microphone, please?
I have it listed. We're still checking on those 2 clients, so we'll see. We'll make determination. I don't think I'm going to do more than 2-year rental, so we'll see.
Right, thanks. Well, I just want to be clear to the commission that with like Melissa said, that once it's rezoned, any of the uses that are allowed in the MXD2 would be allowable. So kind of despite what it currently is or what the current landowner proposes, everything in the MXD2 would be allowable.
And I ultimately am not overly concerned about that because it can be allowed for every other property along 8 Mile as well.
No.
That's just what it is for all the adjacent properties. And it is a pretty skinny parcel if you don't collect that.
It actually brings them more into compliance, potentially. It makes it a more workable.
A viable, much more viable lot.
But I do feel a little bit, we have 2 single-family looking homes that will no longer be single-family homes, but also the 2 properties along 8 Mile are too skinny to really do anything reasonable with them.
I think the one's actually not in compliance if it's just parking. And so to combine these and put them all under redevelopment or potential redevelopment plan would bring that more into compliance as well. This is parking. Any further questions? If not, I would entertain a motion.
In the matter of 146 Stratford, Civil Number 24253342-022, a public hearing was held as published for this date and place, and the Planning Commission recommends approval of the rezoning application to rezone the parcel from R1 residential to MXD2 corridor mixed use with the findings and conditions as listed, and if staff can add the parcel numbers for the other adjacent parcels.
It's parcels 2533482022, 23, 39, and 53.
Thank you.
Okay, so that was all 4. That includes the one that's being rezoned. Yeah. All right, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Brazen and a second by Michelli. Any discussion on the motion?
The alleyway, does that come with a parcel number, or should we identify the alleyway in this condition, in the condition?
You certainly can identify that, that it needs to be resolved, et cetera, whatever language you might want to attach to that. I think that to combine those properties, they will need to resolve it regardless. That's my understanding. So.
Put that as a condition,
To resolve the ownership of the alleyway in order to
combine the parcels.
So, Commissioner Brazen and Michelle, you.
If we feel that it's an implied as part of the conditions, then I'm good with that.
Anyone else have?
Through the chair for just discussion on the motion, would we want a condition saying that the frontage must be on 8 Mile?
I do believe that is part of the requirements of the zoning ordinance already. But if we wanted to, for example, say, need to resolve the alleyway ownership to combine the properties in order to ensure access, what's the word that I'm looking for? And circulation for a frontage 8 Mile to, prevent traffic on Stratford. We could just kind of generally say something just for the intent, but that can do as much or as little of that as feel comfortable with.
So I'm thinking 2 things. We do like zero lot line, right? We like a good, strong storefront. So that might mean, parking behind the storefront. So the other thought is, we don't want a dead wall on 8 Mile and the front door on Stratford. So I think saying that the building frontage, appears as on 8 Mile. And in that case, talking about entrance to the site, I want to make sure they're competitive, having the frontage and access, but not eating up the whole front with access and then, not getting a good, strong street front.
Are we able to fasten a condition that requires the frontage on a rezoning?
I don't believe so, and
No.
The applicant will be bringing a site plan before the commission.
Yeah,
for
that might
this.
probably better address then.
Yeah, okay.
Through the chair, regarding condition 1, it reads, the parcel must be formally combined with the properties to the south to create a single MXD2 zone property that meets minimum dimensional requirements as set forth in the ordinance. We added the additional parcel numbers if we do need to add language regarding the alley itself. I support that.
I don't believe we need to, but
Just want to circle back on that.
Thank you.
I was looking it up again while we were.
appreciate it. Anyone feel strongly one way or the other? All right, leave B. Friendly addition of the Sidwell numbers, as suggested by Showalter? Something?
Support.
Can I ask a question from the applicant at this time? Is there any intention or would be how to, if you ever wanted to combine the gas station and make one giant parcel, is that ever?
Never occurred. I don't know. This is something, I haven't
Okay.
thought about that. I don't know. I don't think so.
Thank you. If no further discussion, we'll take a roll call vote.
Councilmember Mikulski,
Yes.
Commissioner Azar,
Yes.
Commissioner Hale,
Yes.
Commissioner Showalter,
Yes.
Chair Foster,
Yes.
Commissioner Manuel,
Yes.
Commissioner Brazen,
Yes.
Commissioner Michele.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks for everybody.
I'll be at the city council at a later date for final approval.
Thank you again.
Thank you. All right, moving on, we have a discussion item, a workshop with some consultants from OHM to discuss detention facilities and data centers.
Yes, thank you. I hope you guys are excited to have a healthy discussion around these, because I'm sure it can be lengthy tonight, so hopefully, strap in. We have Alex Ritku here with OHM advisors who have provided a technical analysis on both topics. So he'll be presenting just a little bit of background on who OHM is, sort of the methodology behind what he provided for you that were included in your packets. So without further ado, Alex. I'll make sure this is.
Well, good evening, everyone. Happy to be here. So I'm with OHM Advisors. We are a Michigan-based firm with a headquarters in Livonia. I'm in the Detroit and Auburn Hills office, and we are, I guess, now your new planning consultant. But before we get into the technical analysis, I just want to share a little bit about OHM Advisors and who we are. So our mission is about advancing communities. Everything we do is really focused on assisting our partners in resolving problems and making places a better place for people. So OHM Advisors has a number of disciplinary practices from architecture, engineering, GIS, landscape architecture, mechanical engineering, municipal engineering, of course, planning, surveying, transportation, and water. I am within the Play Studio. So our Play Studios is planning, landscape, architecture, community environment. We also do housing and economic development as well. We're over 50 planners and landscape architects in different studios across Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Florida. I had the distinct pleasure of, I don't like to talk about myself too much, but working with Ferndale a number of years ago when I was part of Oakland County. particularly working with your economic development and DDA. And so it's kind of exciting for me to kind of come back and partner up with Ross and Ferndale and kind of bring OHM advisors and our knowledge of downtown communities across Oakland County and, of course, Michigan as well. So before we start, perhaps you saw a little bit of a technical analysis memo that I shared with you about what technical analysis is. So what we're looking here to do is review existing regulations, identify provisions that we want to retain or highlight areas for refinement, and outline a clear roadmap for future ordinance amendments. So overall, I would say the ordinance is doing pretty well. I think you guys have good bones in your ordinance to address kind of the technical needs for this. And so I want the Planning Commission to kind of review the TA in terms of just kind of overall policy and direction from you guys. So I've highlighted some of the things that we want to talk about, and I couldn't think of a better topic to jump into working with you guys, but then jumping into data centers and technical analysis and detention centers technical analysis as well. So before I jump into it, do you guys have any questions for me or any thoughts? Okay.
When it comes to detention centers, how much teeth do a local ordinance actually have? Like when the federal government can come in and say, I don't care, we're putting this here anyways? That's just kind of a general question.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't want to kind of jump outside my boundaries as just a planner and say I'm practicing law. The reality is it's very complicated. But I think what you guys are trying to do here tonight is as stewards of the community, do your role in terms of carrying out the vision of this community and the planning and zoning component of it. So what we're trying to do here is kind of combine legal requirements, things that are within your area as planning commission members for this community, for the city, but as well as defining what your goals are. I could think back to a number of years ago, similar but not exactly, when Ferndale was looking to redevelop its downtown, and knowing the heart of downtown was across the 9-mile corridor. However, Woodward Avenue is owned by the state, of course, and so the state owns it, but at the same time, it's your community, right? So you say to the state of Michigan, the MDOT, and you say, well, that's great, you own the road, but it's our community, and we want to carry out the vision of improving the overall look and feel of our downtown community. And so now you guys have all seen what that looks like. So I think the best thing to do in this case is I think set the legal parameters and the zoning ordinance of what you're looking for. In the event that does happen, or something like that could come to your community, there are some steps. Generally speaking, if a use comes to your community, they need to demonstrate that there's a actual demand or a need for that. Detention centers, data centers, and other uses, do occur or exist in Southeast Michigan or Oakland County or other parts. But I think the thing here is what we found is at just a basic surface level, there's some deficiencies. There's some areas that potentially such a use could come to your community and come through an institutional use or perhaps an office use or something of that nature. So what we're trying to do here is establish kind of some policies and direction without, really putting pen to paper and coming to you with just, here's what I think you guys should have in your language, but it's more importantly to share my overview of thoughts and get your input before we put pen to paper and even consider any sort of amendment. So I hope you answered your question, but I think what we have tonight is something that I think kind of moves you in the right direction. Great. All right. So I guess we should talk maybe about data centers. Is that okay with you guys? Okay, I'll proceed. Okay. So I'm just gonna I'll just kind of, you have it in front of you. I'm gonna scroll down a little bit here, talk about technical analysis and data centers. And the TA. So what you see in front of you is a couple numbers to the left. That's the number. If we agree on, 2.1 or 2.2, you'll see that notation in a potential draft. Section 205 is what we're talking about in terms of general provisions for this type of amendment. And I have my comments there, but I'm not going to read everything and bore everyone to death, but I'm just going to talk about the general recommendation. So first off, you really don't have data centers listed in scheduled uses or permitted uses. So I think we need to establish that and differentiate from other potential uses. So first we want to add data centers as a principal land use classification. Second, we want to limit it probably to industrial zoning. So the idea here is, if anything, at the moment, you could leave it or put it in the industrial district, as well as either I-1 or I-2. And more importantly, I think it would, sufficient to say that it probably should be a special land use. In the event that things change, you could just say, well, we have it defined in our zoning ordinance, and we just, at the moment, we're going through a master plan or whatever it may be. You say, well, we're just going to remove it from all potential districts. There's something very simple that you guys could do, a quick amendment, rather than rewriting everything as things change. So these are considerations for you guys. I'm not sure if this is what direction you want, but I'm open for any feedback before you proceed.
Thanks. And just quick note, 'cause I'm not sure if you've been here recently or whatnot. We have TV screens, and I feel like it often looks like we're rudely just like not exactly looking at you. But just so you know, your information is showing in front of us.
I know Ferndale is a pretty friendly community, so I've worked in other towns.
Just a fair warning there.
Get it. All right. Moving on to Article 4, Architectural Design Standards. You don't really have too much in the event of industrial uses. I think we should maybe add or clarify some items in there because, after all, such a use. Such a use of data centers, features kind of blank stair walls, no windows, mechanical equipment. So you might want to add some things you really require things that I think would fit the overall goals of your community for design requirements. Moving on to Article 5, I apologize, there's a whole host of things here. This is where most of that would reside. So adding data centers as a subsection under 503, we'd have to move some things around. You don't have a standard table of uses, table of use requirements, it's kind of all into one area. Another thing we want to do is add, clarify that facilities primarily engage in digital data processing and storage, potential incompatibility. I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong page. Just to clarify accessory, here it is. To really address what a data center is. So that's what we're trying to do here, is make sure that we're clarifying what a data center is. We're putting it in the table of scheduled uses. Other component of that is accessory infrastructure. As you all know, the data centers do come with a number of accessory uses, whether it's that may be permitted. We want to make sure that we're addressing accessory structures, infrastructure that's a little bit different than, say, another site, whether it's a accessory dwelling unit of some sort. So moving on to BES, we want to make sure we're cross-referencing that in the event that an applicant is looking to come to your community and make that part of the overall site plan. We want to clarify that accessory office uses can be part of a data centers, but that a data center is not an office use. You want to establish standards, regulations around testing frequency for backup generators, and mitigating those problems. Those are probably some of the biggest issues with data centers right now is energy consumption tied into performance standards. So we want to make sure that we're tying in any sort of performance standards as well to your existing performance standards in Section 313. Additionally, mechanical equipment and screening, we want to cross-reference Article 6 and add any additional requirements that we need to provide in here, whether it's from regarding noise, heat, vibration, et cetera. Moving on, security concerns, of course, we want to obviously add security requirements to the site for all applications regarding fencing, lighting, screening standards. A big thing here, of course, as you all know, is utility coordination. We want to make sure we're requiring utility coordination and providing documentation of what such a use would entail in your community. There's a lot of information out there, but we want to make sure that the applicant is demonstrating that in the event that they come to your community. Another big part of that is as well as decommissioning. We want to make sure that decommissioning is provided in there. You know, if something comes up, they want to move out of town, what does that mean? So a lot of larger larger installations of like, recently I've had in mid-Michigan I worked with is solar fields. What does that look like in the case that, you know, the company goes belly up? We want to make sure that the community isn't there holding the bag. Emergency coordination, of course, that's part of it, but we want to make sure that we put language in here that's really specific towards data centers. And lastly, you have definition. You don't have a definition for data centers. It's kind of first and foremost, we want to make sure that data centers are called out for what they are and not having a community work through whether it's, you know, considered an office or some other type of use. So much, that's what I have now. You know, if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to talk about data centers. If anything I missed or things I should consider including in there, so.
Thank you. A couple questions to start off with. First, you mentioned utility coordination. Are you aware of any precedents for setting like caps or limits in terms of utilities?
Yeah, that's something you can definitely put in there in terms of what an applicant, what is their energy consumption. You could ask that. You could ask or require. We could put in language regarding, you know, I believe they're called like a closed cell system or things of that nature. So we can add language in there and see if that's kind of direction. So I could add all those type of best practice language regarding energy and I guess my preference is to put as much in there for consideration for you guys to either keep or redact depending on your appetite. So I'll probably put in a lot more in there to ensure that, you know, we're meeting the standards for Ferndale.
I agree, thank you. And you talk about utilities, but what about like public services such as like water or additional, you know, I don't think that's covered under utilities, or is water covered under utilities?
Yeah. We're going to make sure that we put in language there that the applicant demonstrates and shares what they'll be either consuming or, you know, will be providing back to the community in the event. You know, so it's really more of what language we're going to have in there for the amount of energy consumption as well as regulatory either rates or things that need to be negotiated in this. So I can work with Ross and legal in terms of how far and extent we need to go for in this case. So the challenge here with that language is, you know, we're kind of on the frontier of it, if you will. Things are changing continuously, not just in Michigan, but across the Midwest as communities across America are really responding to this. And so whether we have defined language now or into the future, I think that's something we need to consider and monitor and evaluate, you know, moving forward. So what I can assure you is we're going to try to put as much in there as possible to provide full disclosure, you know, and not have instances like other communities where there wasn't much of a requirement or even per se a definition or perceived use. So just saying what's not going to happen here. In this case, well, you know, if it's going to be playing ball, it's going to be playing ball on the terms of what Ferndale wants and needs. So I think that's kind of the message here we're trying to send to an applicant.
Thank you.
To your point, you know, asking about water and power, those are the biggest ones that we hear, right? Yeah, the continuing innovation, a lot of these data centers are bringing in like Cummins engines to create power, and I think there's gonna be continued innovation on power usage to these data centers because there's not enough lead time for a lot of them to get the stuff that they need to even open. But I think thinking about this from our standpoint on the zoning board or planning commission is what is the thing that's going to constantly evolve, and how do we plan for those things that are going to constantly evolve in a way that we don't have to continually update our ordinance.
Well, I think that this is something that happens across all uses, really, and or like signage ordinances and whatnot. There's constantly legal precedents that are changing, and sometimes you do just have to continue to. And this is one of the reasons why we continue to maintain our zoning ordinance. So I don't think you can get around all of that, but I think we do also, I think, make a big effort to be fairly flexible in our language. And I think there's obviously places where we want to be flexible and places where we don't want to be flexible. So I like the idea to kind of like include it all. We can always take it back as we see fit. To the point of innovation, there are data centers in, I don't think it's Norway, but in that area, that they're actually putting underneath the city and then using to heat the city. I think that something like that is something we might be actually interested in, and I don't know if we want to or need to look into further how we could potentially allow for that or encourage that type of use where we're actually using the heat that's if we were to, move forward with any data centers or that would be something that would be encouraged where I think you said closed cell system. I think it's actually like a closed loop.
Closed loop cooling.
Closed loop cooling, thank you.
I mean, just for public record, meaning like it doesn't constantly draw fresh water, meaning it's like it draws it one time, uses that water to cool it, and then there's like some losses and, you have to replenish water, but the idea being not constantly. I think that would be closed loop was what I was going to say, is the specific like nomenclature for what, at least today, is responsible data center mechanical systems.
And going back to my original point of like, you guys have good zoning ordinance that has good bones, if you will. So you do have language regarding your special land use, which is more of your qualitative components of your ordinance, as well as you already have what we're developing here is more quantitative, dimensional standards. You have, noise, heat, glare, all those sort of things. We could refine some of those if necessary, or add them into just that specifically for data centers, for reasonable reasons, of course. Overall, what we're trying to do here is mitigate against really any negative externalities in the event that it were to come to your community, and set standards of what would be a suitable type of use in Ferndale if it were to come in the appropriate district, so that it meets your standards.
Thank you.
I was a bit curious on this, like Article 20 and the definition of a data center, and if there's been like at least a preliminary like case study of like what would those be in Ferndale today, of like technically there's a data center right behind us right now. Other properties come to mind are like Fuse on Hilton are kind of an IT hub, and I think consideration of like scaling thresholds. I think you cite on the 5.1 of have kind of like a data center like subsection that maybe has some different definitions. And then I think the point of concern for Ferndale may be like on what's a concerning amount of water draw or energy draw that those different classifications hit. Because I think the average like data center is like an IT closet in a building.
I think Ferndale High School has a data center, so.
Yeah.
Well, and through the chair, to piggyback on that, there's a section, it looks like it's attached to 5.03 that says clarify that facilities primarily engage in digital data processing. And it begs the question of what does primarily mean? Does that mean in terms of square footage? Does that mean in terms of percent of revenue that's generated through that business or services that are going through that business? Those are the kinds of points of clarification that we really need.
Right, so to go back on the earlier point, you know, we can definitely add in tiers systems because there are a number of, you know, we wouldn't necessarily probably thought them considered, you know, data centers earlier on because now we're talking about in the context of mega centers. But we could, if you want, we could add different tiers and add different standards of utility usage per tier with caps so that you feel as if like, you know, we're not in the creating a situation where we're over consuming, you know, utility within the city. So I would recommend one definition of what data centers are, but then you could have tiers if that's the direction you guys want. It's going to add a little bit more layer of complexity to it because the language structure would need to represent, you know, different standards for that, whether it's parking, screening, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, because after all, you know, traditionally known data centers was just some, you know, a mainframe or two or whatever. I don't even know if I'm using the proper terms now because it changes, but you'd see them just, you know, in a local office as opposed to these mega centers on a very, very large scale. So if that's a direction I can definitely go in that route.
Well, it sounds like what Sam might have been discussing is just to make sure we don't lump server rooms in with data centers. It's like most buildings have server rooms, most school districts have server rooms, and I know technically it's kind of a tiny little data center inside a school, but I think that like just I'm not sure if adding a bunch of tiers sounds like we're adding a lot of complexity to things that we won't really understand what we're writing into our ordinance.
So what we can do here is a couple things. You could leave data centers as they are, or what we're prescribing here, and then create an ordinance around server rooms, smaller scale. But then again, you do have perhaps server rooms, you know, that go along with a typical office use or some other schools or whatever it may be. But the principal use being that that's a school or an office is a little bit different than I think
to some of the points earlier, it's like, what is the primary use of the majority of the square footage of the building? And maybe that's how it's identified.
And through the chair, just to speak on behalf of council, since I'm the person that wrote the moratorium, what we were looking for is a way that we can prevent the big bad ones, the ones that are just energy hogs, that are big building, that disturbs the neighborhood, that vibrates, that makes noise, that causes emissions of some sort, that has very little to give back to the community in terms of jobs or humans and employment and things like that. There's no appetite at a council level for this to be something that just creates bureaucracy where we don't need bureaucracy, like a server room within a building. It's really about the ones that have made all the headlines. Yep. We're looking to find a way to make those not make headlines in Ferndale.
But we also are not able to legally prevent uses, and so that's not actually our intention. It is to mitigate the potential of these negative externalities from if there is a data center that comes and meets the conditions of our ordinance, that we are mitigating that to the best of extent of possible.
Right. So to your point, Chair, and to answer your question is we're having a balancing act here. We're making sure that if a data center were to come in your community, it's at the appropriate scale and that all of the performance standards are there in place. And we really line that out, that because it's special land use, you can revoke that use, that use from occurring because of the fact that, it's not a use by right, it's a special land use. And so they meet those standards continuously so that those qualitative components are there. So we're having that in place, we're making a special land use in the, we would believe to be the appropriate district. And we have all of the level of performance standards around it, which kind of considering all the considerations of what's gonna happen there, whether it's parking, whether it's, you know, a generator, with the appropriate screening, noise, vibration, all those things are detailed in your ordinance to make sure that if a data center comes in of whatever scale it may be, that, you know, for the better part, no one's gonna hear it, see it, smell it, whatever it may be. It's just gonna be kind of very isolated, very controlled, and, you know, not be a draw on the community's resources. So that's what we're trying to do is write those things out there and not just straight out outlaw, but make sure that, you know, if you're gonna, you know, be in Ferndale, it needs to be to Ferndale standards.
Right, that we have the right
Yep.
parameters.
Yep.
Through the chair. Would it be appropriate to include provisions or a provision requiring at least an attempt at either solar or some sort of renewable energy source? I don't know if that's overreach for what we're talking about here, but it seems like that would be, I mean, if we're talking about draining resources and a lot of electricity use.
I can look into that. That's a great question. In terms of 100%, percentage, et cetera, et
Yeah,
cetera.
something.
You know, that could be a requirement. Yeah, that'd be actually interesting to look into that. Appreciate you bringing that up.
Well, through the chair, sort of on the same thought, and about precedent setting, you said with utilities and resources, are there any other precedents with sustainability? Not just resources coming in, but, you know, exhaust, heat, like creating a heat island. I like the idea that it, you know, could be used, but if not, then it's a detriment. So what it's the sustainability from an output that we could control. Any precedents on that?
Yeah, I can look into, in this case, like if there's advances in geothermal technology that could be part of the design requirements for Section 5, Article 5 that is. So I could definitely look into that.
Or like, I'm thinking shelters around generators for noise protection, or like things that, I mean, that's not a sustainability thing, but I'm just thinking of protecting neighbors, a physical barrier around the big noise on these things, as I understand it, are generators, like humming generators that are running all the time. And so my concern would be, and I mean, there was a mention to it briefly, but just if there was some physical sound dampening attempt around the generators. I don't know if that's appropriate to add in here either, but
I think,
a thought.
and I think to the point of like innovations and providing flexibility as much as possible, I think that as much as we can write things so that, like, you know, the decibel level at this, you know, at the property line or interior to the property line is at this level, is helpful in terms of like, we're not like necessarily dictating exactly how they mitigate the noise, but that they have to mitigate the noise.
Okay.
But like, I'm just saying, like, if there is a preferred solution, and I think this is where we don't always know, right, is that because,
It could change.
yeah, also if then we don't require them to build it and they say, oh, we're going to do it, and then it doesn't happen, then we just have you know, our police are going out and having to check decibel levels. Like, that's not always a good solution either, but so if we can, you know, we try and balance the flexibility for innovation, but also we want to make sure that it's going to actually mitigate the issues, so.
Well, I'm gonna, you know, I think part of this drafting process is I'm gonna be asking you guys, do you even want generators to be permitted on site, right? So it's gonna be layered. It's gonna be between types of utility being used, generators, noise at property lines, vibration, all those standards, and looking and seeing if everything you have in there would create a use that's compatible with Ferndale. So it's really very much a layered approach, right? So that we're really checking off all the boxes here. Site plan review.
I don't think data centers can operate without generators.
Yeah, you're kind of writing data centers out of your ordinance by not allowing them to have generators.
That's clever.
But I also don't know if they could legally argue that you're writing data centers out of your ordinance by not requiring.
Because I think some of the governance on data centers is they need to have like 7-day capacity of
Yeah, there's
backup.
tons of backup, yeah.
Well, the challenge there, Chair, is that, you know, a lot of uses have generators, right? But to what capacity, and to what limit, and where are they located, and how are they screened? So that's
And
something we can put in there.
consistency and fairness across the ordinance, I think, is
Yeah.
important.
Well, I think the most important way, really, in my mind, the most important way of looking at this isn't so much governing how they use their space on their site, it's what negative side effects bleed on to the public. If they have generators, but the generator is quiet and doesn't make any noise, and it doesn't bleed onto the neighboring properties, fine, whatever, have a generator. If you have if you don't have any light pollution that spills onto neighboring properties, then I don't really, I think we should try to make them better neighbors as opposed to dictate how they run their operations.
I think that's part, Chair, that's kind of part of it. It's twofold. It's like, you know, being a good neighbor, having good design qualities involved, and making sure, like I said, I know I've been using this term over, but meeting Ferndale standards. So I think when I put some pen to paper and show you guys kind of what your options are, hopefully, you know, we can kind of find a good balance there, ultimately, to have something that works for you guys.
Any additional questions or anything we would like to see coming up for proposals? All right, if not, also, if you think of anything, I think just direct staff and they can pass it on to the team, and we look forward to seeing more. And then do we have also, was that it?
Nope, we have
That was it?
detention.
Detention, okay, that's what I thought.
Fun continues on.
I'm sorry, actually, before you move on, did anyone in the public want to talk about, have any comments on data centers as we wrap up? Thank you. All right, thanks. We can move on to detention centers?
Yes, detention centers. So, similarly, not too different. You know, we're talking about what could be potentially a private use, some level of government use, whether it's local jails, short-term incarceration, immigration detention centers, juvenile detention centers, or federal pretrial detention centers. I know it's been in the news here recently in Romulus, in the metro area, of development of one. Similar to data centers, I put a technical analysis of what that looks like. So it's slightly different, and I'm going to run through these with you guys. So if any questions you have before I start? No? Okay. So one, we need to create a schedule of uses, a category for detention facilities, immigration detention facilities. In there, I would suggest limiting it to the industrial 2 district, as well as creating a special land use for that. I think it would be appropriate to add language into potentially government uses or institutional uses, and clarifying that anything that looks, feels, or is a detention center that references back to this use category. Going on to Article 5, I'd like to add in a new section establishing specific use standards for detention and immigration facilities, establish a minimum separation distance from residential districts, schools, parks, and daycare facilities, require submission of security and operation management plans during review, require documentation demonstrating emergency response coordination as part of the approval process, require screening and buffering for all outdoor activity areas, require supplemental operational security and transportation plans during the site plan as different types of vehicles come and leave the premise. I think the other part of that is compatibility review, making sure that such a use meets the master plan, which is, of course, is the whole basis of the zoning ordinance, and for that the applicant, in whatever case, may demonstrate that this is a use that needs to be in Ferndale, that there's a demonstrated need in Ferndale for such a use, I would think, and I would believe largely that such a use has already been demonstrated in other communities of where they already exist, and that capacity issues aren't so much where it needs to be in Ferndale for any apparent reason. Additionally, I think we need to review landscape requirements, screening along public right-of-ways and adjacent properties, parking standards, of course, specific to detention centers, and determine what kind of vehicles come in and out because of perceived potential for increased demand, as well as along with that a traffic impact study, because unlike data centers, detention centers will cause traffic to the site, and I think that's obviously needed for a special land use. Lastly, most importantly, is adding a definition for such a facility. So whether it's correctional facilities, detention facilities, immigration facilities, we want to make sure that we're not missing in, that everyone knows what we're talking about when we're describing this type of use in your community. So, open for questions, Chair.
Thank you. I'll open it up.
I just was going to ask the question of why do we, or like detention centers, immigration detention centers, or I personally would prefer just detention centers. I think that is a little bit less. If anyone else has any different opinions, but just, and also in the definition, making sure that kind of similar to the server room discussion, to make sure that we don't, by mistake, write our police facilities into our detention centers.
Right, and so I guess to that point, if you wanted to expand the definition, but also not, limit the jail, like how, I guess, do you have a suggestion, or you just, what's behind wanting to go beyond just the immigration detention?
Well, I mean, it's, I think what, I wouldn't really want any kind of prison, be it for immigrants or non-immigrants, allowed unregulated access within the community. So whoever's in it, it doesn't really, I don't like the idea of either, but I mean, let's say that it's no longer going to be for immigrants in the future, that type of things.
Yeah, point taken, and thank you for expanding.
I had a question on like when these do come up, and maybe like Romulus is probably the closest case study, but when these do come up to cities, is it just like a purchase of a facility by Department of Homeland Security? What like, I guess, pseudonyms or monikers do these come through as? Because I doubt they're making it clear what those facilities are used for.
Yeah, I don't know if I could necessarily answer that in terms of their tactical abilities to come in some capacity. I think what we're trying to do here is establish a precedent in Ferndale of saying, this is looks, smells, feels, tastes, whatever you want to pick, all the senses of what a detention center is. These are our requirements for such a use, and like I said, make sure meeting that standard. So, there is, of course, potentially legal precedent for establishing such a use in a community, but I think what we're doing here is being stewards of the community and saying that this is what Ferndale sees as an appropriate design requirements for what is otherwise a legally permitted use in Michigan, right? So we're trying to mitigate those things because going back on data centers and detention centers, we've seen, I think more so in data centers, is communities, and I could probably say this as having worked in Michigan, Tennessee, Colorado as well, is that when you certain states and certain parts of the country lack some of the either legal requirements or zoning requirements around particular uses. And so you start to see a whole hodgepodge of outcomes that are different from place to place, right? So I think the moral of the story here and where the rubber hits the road is putting things in place that meet your guys' standards so that we're not allowing it to just go anywhere and look and feel like anything, but something that is, like I said, appropriate for Ferndale so that we're not having an issue that really kind of gets out of control in some senses.
So the point of expanding the definition, because I somewhat agree, is like, we really want to regulate this kind of regardless of how you're identifying the person that's within, but we also obviously have an existing jail, is that the right term? And that's within kind of the CBD, but that is probably not the location we want, like non-publicly owned detention centers. So I don't know if that's, I don't think you can regulate by.
We can look into it. It could be considered a existing nonconformity or, you know.
Yeah, but if they want to move, et cetera, like I mean, we've had different discussions about, the infrastructure or the facilities of the public and the community, but could there be like exemptions for public?
You do have public
facilities?
institutions, and so what the difference being here is what's the primary use?
Right.
Right. That's the big difference is that just a police station or municipal offices with that as part of accessory use to it, or is it the principal use? And so that's really the difference here between a server room
Right.
and a mega data center as opposed to, a state penitentiary and or, jail cells as part of a larger police station.
I think if we wanted to build a bigger police station, even if it was publicly owned, we probably wouldn't want it downtown, et cetera. So I feel like we probably can just be very consistent with the language in terms of, regardless of what kind of detention center it is, these are the rules, and
And I think the primary use, if its primary use is detention, if you look at any police station, the primary use of a police station isn't detention. The primary use is to support the day-to-day operations of the police station. A small 15% of the square footage roughly is usually dedicated towards cells or detention facilities, but the primary use is storing the vehicles, evidence storage, just supporting the day-to-day operations of the station. So I would say that the primary use of that building isn't detention. But if you have a detention facility, the primary use is detaining people.
we could probably potentially also, so if there was a facility that went up and it was just larger, we don't really have the acreage or the, sites to allow for it, but say, there's a bigger industrial site that got, Detroit Axle, for example. If there was a primary use, but then it's still a large detention center, maybe we can even say, even if it's ancillary use? Accessory, thank you. I knew I was wrong. Above a certain size or square footage, I don't know if we could do something like that, but just to make sure that just because it's a accessory use, it's not getting past certain design guidelines, because I think at a certain size, even if it's accessory to a primary use, it's still a very significant use if it's past a certain size. So if we could somehow, I haven't really seen it kind of backwards like that, where the accessory use is regulated like that, but I'm sure there's precedent for it.
Are there any other terms like processing center where they're, moving people through but not really holding them? I mean, are there any other where are the boundaries of what we're,
Of like the amount of time they're being detained
yeah,
for.
if they're just being processed but not really held for, I don't know if there's a period of time. Just, I'm wondering if there's any gray area that we need to know.
Yeah, I don't know if I could answer that right now. I could look into it and see if there's, you know, anything's really possible in the, but,
Human processing sounds terrible.
yeah, I'm not sure.
But that would be kind of what you're speaking of, right? Yeah, I think it'd be helpful if you could just look into maybe
Sure.
kind of expanding the definition in terms of the amount of time someone might be being detained, or if it's just for the processing of.
I think a person is detained at any moment in time, I think. You know, that'd be kind of helpful.
Yeah, thank you.
And that also, the amount of time being detained could be a way to differentiate between local police functions and a detention facility, because I believe that there is a certain limit to the amount of time that a local municipality can hold someone in their cells, I believe, without transferring them to a larger, longer-term facility. I might be incorrect there, but maybe there's a way to navigate that path with
What I can do on some of
time
these
detained.
situations, I'll work with Ross and staff and with legal to see how we can separate these things out. You know, I think we're getting into an area that's maybe slightly gray, to be honest, a little subjective. I think what we're ultimately trying to do here is try to ensure, not that's my preferred word, but at times to, you know, mitigate against something like this. You know, the difference between local police operations and that of, you know, large detention centers or, you know, known immigration enforcement. You know, we can try to work something in there language-wise that might meet that, if you will. Even if you do have language in there, then it becomes a matter of enforcement and how much can a plan commission or city council do. I'm not necessarily sure, right? So what we're trying to do is try to keep it
Enforceable.
Matt, to your point, I feel like there was even instances where government had, it was like a 20 or 48-hour limit, and then they were still exceeding that. And so, like, there's nothing that we can do to, like, stop them from doing those type of things, even though that's what the facility was set up as.
And, I mean, and also just to frame the conversation as right now, we legally can't say that we are trying to eliminate detention centers in our city, because we can't say that, because we can't zone out illegally allowed use. So what we're trying to figure out right now is, what do we want a Ferndale jail to look like? So,
How about, I mean, through the chair, is there any room here to talk about distance from schools, churches, other places that might be everywhere?
So I do have that. Let me bring it up.
Make it 2
actually.
miles.
I mean,
I do have here.
Why not?
You can't put on restrictions that effectively,
reasonable ones?
I have distant.
What's a reasonable one?
They would effectively limit it.
Separation requirements, so distance from
Okay.
daycares, et cetera, et cetera.
What's a reasonable length for that?
500 to 1,000 feet.
Yeah, that's an area that can be legally contested in some cases. I think what we're trying to do is find something that's defensible to a
What's
degree.
defensible to you?
That's for your legal staff to answer, really.
500 to 1,000
Give you
feet.
500 to 1,000
around there.
feet, yeah.
what do we use for
No.
marijuana facilities? So that way we can say we're not trying to,
Well, that's kind of what, yeah.
Yeah, it's
100,
a little
I
bit
think.
different because, you know, I think the thing is, the important thing, the context here is scale, intensity of use, right? Marijuana store kind of, to some degree, fits into the character of the community as like a regular store, right? Detention center is a much different, you know.
but we require, or we have a certain radius that marijuana facilities in our ordinance aren't allowed to be near schools,
But we need to,
parks.
here to answer the question, we're gonna probably match it. I'm gonna say specifically yet, but I'm gonna give you reasons for what number I kind of, you know, prescribe to you guys. in terms of what that number is. But if you're gonna look at, say, a quarter mile or a mile, like some communities do, then you're pretty much making it not
Running out
possible,
of-
so.
And I also think just based on our zoning map, our zoning use group that this is identified for is already doing some of the work there.
So I'm gonna be adding as much as I can in here for this use and see, you know, how far do we wanna push it, you know, with considerations of planning and legal and other items that, for thought.
I appreciate you explaining all that. I don't see church written in there, but like, is that one that will be included? School,
we
park, daycare?
Yeah, we can look into the semantics of those words. I mean, you know, in terms of
Religious facility.
what
is
are,
that-
Well, that would be a big difference. There's a lot
No,
of
I'm
those.
saying, yeah, if we can add religious facility, but.
yeah, right. We're gonna,
But it has to, yeah, be defensible again, but.
I mean, to Commissioner Showalter's point of like defining what they could look like, if they do show up, like, are there other requirements like that start to make it prohibitive of like access to 24-hour transportation and have like proximity to a transportation stop, which is an issue with a lot of detention centers today, of they're often in the middle of nowhere without any access to public transportation. Are there other like considerations in that vein that we'd want to entertain?
I'm not sure if that's, you know, there is a consideration you could put along transportation routes in Ferndale, whether it's strictly bus and or car, or walkable, or by bike. I mean, you could do either or. I mean, you know, you really get into it. I mean, ultimately what you're doing here is trying to put things in place that are, for the most part, defensible. You can regulate it. It's not subjective, it's objective. That's what we're doing here. The special land use component of it is more of that qualitative, subjective. And so we're trying to put as much language in here to take out discretion decision-making and saying, like, this is what it's gonna have to look like in our community to even be considered. Now, those things can change, obviously. But I'm not sure if I'm familiar with the transportation requirement of that, but something we could add.
All right, anything further? Again, if you think of anything, feel free to email staff and can pass it along. And we look forward to updates. Do we have working timeline?
Yeah, so the moratorium for detention centers ends on September 5th of this year, and for data centers would be October 13th. For both of these, I think that the process would be, you know, working with Alex to draft up ordinances, have that reviewed with legal, and then go through our ordinance committee, and then it would come to planning commission for review.
And then we have a public hearing at that time, and there's also a public hearing when it's held at the city council would have the final.
Correct. So
Approval.
if we're all comfortable with that process, or if you would like us to, you know, have more of a free flowing, where, you know, we're sharing drafts at each stage with you all. But I think, you know, given the sensitivity of this, having legal review any documents before it's publicly out there, I think would probably be best. So hopefully, I'm not going to hold this to a strict timeline, but, you know, hopefully by, well, really August, we would probably have to, or no, July, we might.
It is July, pretty much.
Yeah, I know, that's a thing.
So I think question, since we are making active progress on the matter, is this somewhere where we can extend the moratorium as we continue to work diligently along a quick timeline to do this, but is that
I believe so.
allowable? Because September 5th is right around the corner. And I know that each of these stages for the purposes of public engagement and to ensure that we're doing this appropriately, like they each take a specific amount of time. We have to post them in newspapers, et cetera. And between the two readings, is there a specific amount of time?
15-day notice, right?
Prior to each meeting, but.
Yeah, I don't know why I was thinking there was an additional time requirement, but yeah, so I think all the stages that you just outlined will take a few months. And so I do believe that will probably extend beyond the time frame of the moratorium. And so I don't know if that's something you want to take to city council in terms of potentially extending those if they feel comfortable.
I'll double check with legal to make sure, but I've seen extensions for data centers right now. You know, like in Washington Township, I think they extended theirs. So
I think we're obviously actively like pursuing this and not delaying it, you know.
I think it's probably useful if you come up with your timeline, once we dig into this further, we got a clear path.
Yep.
You can put that as part of the packet that you give to the city council, and here's the timeline, here's the expected completion.
Yep.
But based on the outline, I would expect that we would see a draft ordinance for both of these the next time that we see it on our agenda. We might have discussion, want to table that depending on the language, but we've had some great discussion. I think we'll see, you know, we know what we expect to see, and I don't think that would take more than, you know, 1 or 2 meetings with the planning commission to move forward. That would be my understanding.
We could also take the position of if it's reasonably close, we can approve it and then adjust it. If there's a,
We can always suggest edits, or what, is that what you mean? Of course, yes. All right, anything further?
All I have, guys.
Thank you, Alex. It was very well done. And do I understand that, so will you just be working on this project or general additional capacity?
Ongoing.
Whatever Ross needs.
Awesome. Well, we look forward to seeing you more. Thank you so much. All right, next on our agenda, administrative, sorry, was there anything from the public? Sorry, before we move on to our next agenda item. Since you're here, thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Let's say just some concerns about, okay, jail detention centers, like a lot of places will, like Frank Murphy Hall of Justice was directly connected to Detroit jails, which is very convenient to get, okay, prisoners from the jail to the courthouse. And I'd hate to see like okay, our next jail or police fire department facility, you know, be other side of the railroad tracks, so you have to wait 2 hours to wait for the train to cross. And meanwhile, somebody's freaking out in the back of the car, you know, saying like, "Get me out of here, I can't stand it," and other expletive words that are well deserved. Another thing just regarding detention centers, like such as this stupid ass jail, you should actually have heat in it before being sadists and being assholes to people. So you want to have a requirement to actually have heat in it. And I did like the idea of trying to look at the primary use, because I'd hate to see like a warehouse having, you know, 40 bathrooms and then just temporarily containing 20 people, and then it gets to be 60 and 80, and, you know, it becomes a detention center.
Definitely.
So, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, administrative items.
Not much to report. We are down a commissioner. Chris Hall had resigned, I believe, last week. So we thank him for his participation with the commission. So if you all know of anyone that's interested, please spread the word. Otherwise, we are meeting the fourth Wednesday next month for a meeting. We have one application, PUD application, that's going to be coming for you for the across the street, the development across the street. Other than that, I don't think we have. Yeah.
Okay, so just to reiterate, our meeting in July will be at on the 22nd rather than the 15th, which is our regularly scheduled. Thank you. All right, any commission items?
I have one, but I'm reluctant to even do it because I don't want
Please
to. I don't want
go
to kick up a
ahead.
whole bunch of dust at 8:30 or 8:40. But and I'm glad you're still here, Alex, because this might be one that maybe I bounce off you. But Amazon delivery drones. I don't even know if it's like a third rail for the commission to.
We actually haven't talked about it. I appreciate you bringing it up.
What?
It's FAA regulated
Nothing.
space, yeah.
Is the FAA regulated space when they drop down 20 feet in front of your house?
Like up to 100 feet or something.
Yeah, but they drop down below that to drop
Like,
back.
okay, in the interest of like creative ideas here, it just seems like they're attacking us. I mean, it's just like they're like locusts. Like every 20 minutes when I'm out in the yard, and so I just wonder. This is probably a legal question, but if there's any mechanism that we could do anything
Yeah,
about them.
I mean, it's been discussed within city administration.
Or like even like a kickback or something for every mile they deliver with
For every
Ferndale,
drone
do
that
they
flies over-
deposit money into an account? Like, I'm serious. Like, there needs to be something on the other side of this.
Yeah.
Business window of time when they can do the delivery.
Maybe that, yeah. Or
Canopy fund.
Right.
And then they can't operate.
seriously, I think that's a reason. I mean, so Ferndale is one of like 10 beta test markets for this, and I just feel like if one of these 10 markets doesn't push back, they're gonna just unroll this on the whole country. And so
Yeah.
I feel like it's sort of incumbent upon us as like a forward-thinking, smart community to see what we could do here. I'm not saying like it shouldn't be allowed, right? Like I don't think that's
I am.
reasonable. Maybe, but
I
like
don't know how it is.
I think there should be like some.
It woke me up at
Arrangements here.
7:45 on a Saturday.
Really?
Yeah, they're loud and it's a weird noise. Anyway, I wanted to bring that up
No, I
just
appreciate
before
it. We
I.
actually haven't talked about it in the past, and
It's a council thing too.
probably because it's not really zoning or,
Yeah.
but
I
or land use
believe
related.
it's kind of, I could see it coming up to ordinance committee here pretty soon. I know that I think Texas has regulations around the time. However, I'm not sure, from what I briefly looked at, I'm not sure if Michigan can regulate, like if municipalities in Michigan can regulate.
Or even having them follow the street grid versus cutting over everybody's yards. I mean,
Right.
like, that was a thought I had. Something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, even just think of regulating the time, like construction noise, when
Yeah.
construction happens, from like 8 AM to, 5 or whatever, so that could be part of it.
That's all.
and
Thank you for bringing that up.
And I also know that I do know that there's FAA airspace, but I mean, those things come down about 10 feet above the air to drop it down, and I mean, the second floor of my house is an FAA airspace. So, I mean.
Well, and even like news helicopters that are patrolling Woodward all the time, sometimes they're pretty low. Like, and I'm standing in my driveway studying, the difference between this drone and what looks like a helicopter, and I'm kind of thinking like, that doesn't look like a ton of space between there. And so I just think something needs to be considered here. That's all.
I appreciate that. Actually, if you could report back in terms of,
Levers do we have to pull?
yeah,
If
and it's,
anything.
it's not really land use related in that it is airspace, and, the facility is in Hazel Park. Right.
That's another, yeah,
Yeah,
right.
but,
If you look right next to that.
Yeah, I've been imagining it, actually.
yeah.
I mean, but New York City has airspace rights, right? How the skyscrapers
yeah.
can develop, right? Sure. So, I mean, there's gotta be something.
There you go.
Development rights. And we do have, we also have development.
Maybe they
airspace
lease
rights,
the airspace.
Yeah,
I'm not kidding.
yeah, there could be something to it. I would say in terms of land use, it does keep delivery trucks off the streets. I'm like,
Yeah.
I do
the
think,
one
like, there's
small
a
pro.
really big consideration, I think, where like Martin Road Park is an example, and like some of like our park spaces and our limited green space that we have that they do use and prioritize pretty often. So I think there's like a consideration maybe for like the public space and like public corridors.
And the public use of
the
space to not have to endure the noise and
Like our
privacy
park should be
concerns
free
of, yeah,
machines and,
Yeah.
and commerce like that.
that's a good point, yeah.
And I do know, so it's a priority right now for the Michigan Office of Future Mobility and Electrification to be working on policies around this. So I think if there was something from Ferndale, there's folks at that table who could promote it, and it would probably have to go through Michigan State Legislature to have an impact. But I think there are levers for us to pull.
Yeah, I would say that I'm going to school in London for a cities program that kind of is all aspects of cities, not just land use and whatnot. And literally, like London, all my colleagues are from all over the globe. They're all kind of flabbergasted that this is already actually a reality and something
Yeah, like
that we allow.
we're one of the beta markets that are being tested here, and so I feel like we are being
Yeah.
tested to respond. To
I think, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Well, and this is the start. Like this is the
Right, it
Amazon
doesn't stop.
program. Like there's
Walmart.
Google has their Wing program that they're partnered with Walmart on.
gosh.
This is like every major retailer is looking at this. I mean, I've seen from the automotive sector, I've seen like concepts of dealerships using drone delivery to get parts between like dealerships and network. So this is the start.
Oh, however we want to start regulating airspace as land use as a
Yeah, Ross, whenever
forward-thinking
you
community.
whenever you get that
I'll
ready.
get on that. Yeah, I got you guys.
Aren't you so glad you took
Figure it
the-
all out and, you know, by the moratorium ends.
Any other commission items this evening? All right, well, hearing none, I will adjourn the meeting at 8:41. Thank you, everyone.